Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys cornerback situation because it's getting interesting. And not just for the usual training camp hype. There's real movement, real questions, and a real sense of urgency surrounding this secondary. And yes, we're going to dive into Stephon Gilmore, Trayvon Diggs, some promising young names. And even the back end of the roster, where things are more wide open than people think. Now I want you to keep something in mind as we go. This cornerback room is full of talent, but it's also dealing with uncertainty. Injuries, potential free agent moves, and young players trying to earn their stripes. So buckle in because there's a lot to unpack. Starting off with the veteran everyone keeps talking about, Stephon Gilmore. Cowboys fans are buzzing over a couple of tweets. Now, it's not every day that social media chatter actually sparks real debate, but in this case it absolutely did. Wylie Thomas, one of the Cowboys' young safeties and someone who clearly looks up to Gilmore, tweeted about having some great conversations with the veteran. Gilmore responded. Just that little interaction sent a shockwave through Cowboys Nation. Fans immediately jumped to conclusions. He's coming back, right? He's still a free agent. He loved being in Dallas, and honestly the Cowboys need another veteran presence in that secondary. The logic adds up, right? But here's the thing, just because Gilmore and Wylie Thomas are talking doesn't mean a deal is in the works. These guys have relationships. Veterans mentor younger players all the time, especially those they see potential. And Gilmore doesn't strike me as a guy who does things for attention. If he's talking to Thomas, it probably means there's mutual respect, not necessarily negotiations. Still, it raises a fair question. Should the Cowboys bring him back? He's not in his prime anymore. But the guy can still play. He was solid last season and brings leadership, intelligence, and physicality. More importantly, he knows the system and the expectations in Dallas. It wouldn't be a long-term move, but it would be a smart one to bridge the gap until the younger players are ready to step up or until Diggs is fully back. Which brings us to Trayvon Diggs. That's the real linchpin to this entire conversation. Diggs has been recovering from knee surgery and the timeline has been kind of murky. But according to Nick Harris, there's at least a realistic shot Diggs could be ready for Week 1. That's a big deal, not just because he's a Pro Bowl level talent when healthy, but because this defense is built around having playmakers on the outside. If you told me Diggs only misses the first few games, I'd take that in a heartbeat. For games without him, that's manageable, but the uncertainty is what makes everything tricky. Diggs has said he wants to be ready by Week 1, and I love that attitude. That's the kind of competitor you want in the locker room. But there's also been talk that the real decision point won't come until mid-August. That sounds like the Cowboys are preparing for the possibility he might not be available right away. Which again makes the Gilmore conversation even more relevant. Because if Diggs misses time and you don't bring in another veteran, you're banking on young players to step up fast, and that's always risky. And Diggs, for all the criticism he gets, especially about tackling, he's still a difference maker. You don't find guys with his ball skills just anywhere. Even if he never has another season like 2021, where he was picking off passes like it was Madden on rookie mode, he still gives your defense a real edge. When he's out there, quarterbacks think twice about targeting him. That changes everything. His presence alone tilts the field, so yeah, the sooner he's back, the better. And until he is, the Cowboys need a plan that doesn't involve just hoping someone steps up. Let's talk about some of those players who might have to step up. Josh Butler is still working his way back from a torn ACL. That injury happened on Thanksgiving, which means his timeline is pushing him toward a mid-season return at best. And even then, you're probably looking at a practice squad situation to start. But you can't ignore what he showed last year. He was one of those guys who came out of nowhere, flashed, and made people take notice. He's not going to be a Week 1 starter, but he's someone to keep an eye on, especially if other guys struggle or injuries pile up. Another name that deserves attention is Savion Redwell. He's in a similar spot, coming off a torn ACL, recovering steadily and potentially starting the year on the PUP list. But once he's cleared, the Cowboys are going to want to get a good look at him. This guy has all the physical tools. Tall, long arms, elite speed, exactly what Dan Quinn loved in his corners. And what the current staff still values. What's holding him back is experience. He hasn't played a ton of corner. He's still learning. And when you're coming off a serious injury, development can slow even more. But the ceiling, it's there. And if he's healthy by midseason, don't be surprised if he starts pushing for real playing time. Maybe not as a full-time starter, but as someone rotating in, especially in nickel situations. Now let's get into the guys who are healthy and fighting for roles right now. Israel Mukuamu is one of the most interesting names on the roster. He's been moved around the secondary during his time in Dallas. Outside corner safety slot defender, he's done a bit of everything. And according to Nick Harris, he's considered safe to make the team. That's a big statement, especially when you consider the Cowboys are looking at a crowded cornerback room once everyone's healthy. Mukuamu's versatility gives him an edge. If Diggs isn't ready and if Redwell starts the year on PUP, Mukuamu could find himself in the starting lineup week 1. He's always shown something when he gets on the field. Nothing flashy but solid, smart, and adaptable, the kind of player who makes rosters and earns coaches' trust. Alongside him, you've got Darren Bland and Kyer Elam, two guys locked in as starters. At least 2 open the season. Bland has been a gem since he arrived, and Elam, the new face in the room, brings pedigree and potential. That gives you 2 reliable options, but you need 3 in today's NFL. You can't survive with just 2 corners. That 3rd spot is up for grabs. Could it be Mukuamu? Could it be Redwell later in the year? Could it be someone like Callan Carson if he steps up, or is that the opening for a veteran like Gilmore? That's the key decision the Cowboys have to make in the next few weeks. Callan Carson, by the way, was a pick a lot of people liked last year. Latter round value, solid athletic traits, a little raw but promising. Problem is he wasn't very good last season. He also dealt with a shoulder injury which didn't help his development. The hope is that he's ready to go for training camp and that he looks sharper this year. If he does, he's probably the 5th corner on the roster. If he doesn't, then things get complicated. Because you're not just competing for playing time, you're fighting to make the team. And the Cowboys have other names in that mix. Guys like CJ Goodwin, who is really more of a special teamer, but still counts in the cornerback room. Come on, Hall is another name that came up in Harris' breakdown. He was a dark horse last year, impressed at times, but then got hurt. Still, he brings value on special teams, and if the Cowboys decide to carry 6 corners, that 6th guy has to play special teams. That's where someone like Hall or Robert Rochelle might sneak in. And let's be honest, injuries are going to happen. We already know that. Having guys who can step in and not look totally lost matters more than ever. Then there's Andrew Booth Jr. He came into the league with expectations. 2nd round pick. A lot of potential, but it hasn't clicked. Injuries, inconsistency, and now he's on his 3rd defensive coordinator in just over a year. That's a lot of change. And unfortunately, he hasn't shown enough to lock down a roster spot. If things don't change fast in camp, he could be on the outside looking in. Sometimes guys just need the right fit, the right situation, but right now, Booth hasn't found his footing. So what does this all mean for the Cowboys heading into training camp? It means they've got decisions to make, real ones. This isn't just about filling out the back end of the depth chart. It's about figuring out who can actually contribute on Sundays, who can survive the early part of the season if Diggs isn't ready, and whether they need to bring in outside help like Stephon Gilmore. It's about deciding if you're ready to trust young players like Mukuamu or Redwell, or if you need that steady hand who's seen it all before. And don't forget, the joint practices against the Rams are coming. That's going to be a real test. If the young guys hold up well, there maybe the Cowboys feel confident in what they have. If not, maybe that's the moment they make a move. Either way, this cornerback room is going to look a lot different by the end of camp than it does right now. And how that shakes out could be the difference between a top-tier defense and one that struggles to get off the field. As the Cowboys inch closer to training camp, there's a growing sense that this cornerback group will either elevate the defense or be its weak link. Everyone wants to talk about Micah Parsons, about how the pass rush will dominate again, about the defensive line rotations and Dan Quinn's legacy, but none of that works if the corners can't hold their own. That's the truth. You can dial up the pressure, disguise coverages, get exotic on 3rd down, but if the back end of your defense isn't reliable, the whole thing falls apart. And with Diggs' status uncertain and Stephon Gilmore still unsigned, the front office is walking a fine line between confidence and complacency. What complicates everything is the transition in defensive leadership. Mike Zimmer is stepping into a role that had Dan Quinn's fingerprints all over it. For the past few years, Zimmer is no rookie. He's a defensive mind with decades of experience. But he sees things differently. Where Quinn liked long, explosive athletes who could thrive in man coverage, Zimmer leans more cerebral. He wants guys who don't just chase the ball, but understand leverage, formation tendencies, route combinations. That philosophical shift matters especially for young players. It means some of the cornerbacks who were tailor-made for Quinn's system might need to adjust fast. They're not just learning technique, they're learning a new language of defense. Take someone like Darren Bland. Under Quinn, he flourished in a role that allowed him to be instinctive and aggressive. His knack for jumping routes, taking risks, and trusting his eyes made him one of the most exciting young corners in the league. But under Zimmer, the expectation may change slightly. It's not that Zimmer discourages aggressive play, he just wants it rooted in discipline. That's not a bad thing, but it does mean Bland will need to tighten up some of the looser habits he could get away with in Quinn's scheme. That's not a knock, it's a challenge. One that could take him to another level if he embraces it. Then there's Kyle Elam, a player with all the physical tools you want. He's got the frame, the speed, the pedigree. What he hasn't had yet is consistency. In Buffalo, he flashed at times but never fully established himself. He comes to Dallas with a clean slate, and that might be the best thing for him. Zimmer's structure could help him. Sometimes young corners need constraints to help them grow. If Elam can stay healthy, absorb the playbook, and find rhythm with the safeties around him, he could end up being the best move the Cowboys made this offseason. He won't be asked to be a savior, but he will be asked to cover, to communicate, and to not give up explosive plays. That's the baseline. Anything above that is a bonus. This all circles back to Stephon Gilmore and why his potential return looms so large. He's not just insurance, he's a stabilizer. He's someone who can help the others get lined up correctly, who sees things a half second earlier than most, who takes the right angles even when he's beat off the line. And in a system like Zimmer's where every mistake is magnified, that kind of veteran savvy is invaluable. If the Cowboys are serious about contending this year, there's almost no argument against bringing him back. Even if he's your third corner, he raises the floor of the unit. He gives you breathing room if Diggs isn't ready, and when Diggs is back, he gives you depth that championship teams need. But money matters, and the Cowboys are juggling more than just cornerbacks right now. They've got to think about CeeDee Lamb's next contract. They've got the DAK situation hanging over everything, and there's a real question about how much they're willing to invest in a position they've already spent on. Remember, Diggs is on a big deal, and Bland is going to want one eventually too if he keeps ascending. So every dollar they give Gilmore is a dollar that might have gone somewhere else. That's the balancing act. But championship windows don't stay open forever, and sometimes you have to spend a little more than you're comfortable with to chase a title. The Cowboys are at that moment right now. Beyond the top of the depth chart, you've got competition brewing at the bottom. Special teams play is going to be critical for guys like CJ Goodwin, Nahshon Wright, and whoever ends up as cornerback 6. If you're not contributing on kicks or punts, you better be an elite cornerback, and most of these guys aren't there yet. So the decision might come down to who can cover punts more consistently, who can tackle in space, who can be trusted not to make mistakes when the lights come on. And for a team with Super Bowl aspiration, those little details matter more than fans realize. It's also worth thinking about how Zimmer might use certain packages. He's known for crafting hybrid look safeties who play like linebackers, corners who slide inside to cover tight ends, even defensive linemen dropping into coverage in disguise blitzes. So versatility matters. If you're a one-trick pony, your snap count is going to be low. That's where someone like Israel Mukuamu becomes so valuable. He can play safety, outside corner, and even line up in the slot if needed. He's not elite at any one thing, but he's good enough at multiple things to earn a real role. Zimmer loves players like that. Smart, adaptable, tough. Mukuamu might not have a Pro Bowl in his future, but he has a real chance to be one of those glue guys that every top-tier defense needs. And don't forget about leadership. The Cowboys lost some of that when they let Gilmore walk into free agency. Diggs is a star, but he's not a vocal leader. Bland is quiet. Elam is new. Someone has to step into that leadership role on the field and in the film room. Maybe that's your Dan Lewis. Maybe it's someone like Donovan Wilson from the safety room, or maybe it's a coach. But without leadership in the secondary, things can fall apart quickly. You miss one communication on a bunch formation or misread a switch route and it's 6 points. That can't happen if you want to beat teams like San Francisco, Philly, or even Detroit. Those teams are too good. They punish you for mistakes. So here we are, days away from training camp, with a cornerback group that could be great or could be a question mark. The answers are coming, and they'll come fast. Preseason games will expose weak links. Joint practices will highlight communication lapses. And somewhere in all of this, the coaching staff will have to decide if this group, as currently constructed, is good enough, or if they need to call in a familiar face, someone who knows the defense, the locker room, and the standard. That's the decision that will define this part of the offseason. And it won't just impact the first few weeks of the regular season. It could decide whether this defense is elite again, or whether it slips back to being average when it matters most. Time will tell. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers are stirring around the NFL as veteran offensive lineman Andrew Wylie has reportedly caught the attention of the Dallas Cowboys, fueling speculation about a potential move to strengthen their offensive front. Known for his reliable pass protection and run-blocking skills, Wylie's experience could be a valuable asset for a Cowboys team looking to bolster their line and provide more stability for their quarterback. Wylie, who has built a solid reputation over his career with various teams, is seen by many insiders as a player who can bring both grit and savvy to the trenches. Although nothing has been officially announced, sources close to the situation suggest that talks may already be underway, sparking excitement among Cowboys fans eager to see improvements on the offensive line. The Cowboys have struggled at times to maintain consistent protection and open lanes, so the addition of a seasoned lineman like Wylie could be a game changer. Rumors indicate that Dallas could be aiming to leverage Wylie's veteran presence to mentor younger linemen while shoring up their offensive front for the demanding season ahead. The Cowboys management appears to be exploring every option to stay competitive, and Wylie fits the profile of a player who can adapt quickly and make an immediate impact. While contract details and negotiations remain under wraps, the buzz around Wylie joining the Cowboys continues to build, with analysts debating how his style of play would mesh with Dallas's offensive scheme. Could this be the move that finally solidifies a unit that has been in flux? The possibility certainly has fans and commentators alike talking. For now, the scenario remains speculative, but if it comes to fruition, the veteran Andrew Wylie might just be the reinforcement the Cowboys need to push through a tough schedule and elevate their game to the next level. Stay tuned as this story develops and the Cowboys' plans for their offensive line potentially take shape around this intriguing prospect. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.